the right people come together at the right moment, when they care almost as much about winning as they do about each other, they can become the best of the best.
Welcome to the best soccer show, the best soccer show in the whole world.
Here we go. It's the best soccer show. Jason Davis with you live on a Thursday. Doing this by myself once again. Thank you for hanging with me on a Thursday. I will address the lack of the Dubois for all you old school best soccer show people. No Jared again. Jared's going through a moment in his life where he's required to work at night. And that means he can't be here. And so I wish Jared was here. Shout out to my buddy Jared Dubois. He knowing that he can call the show tonight, because I do have the phone lines working. There's a chance we could hear from him. I don't have any reason to think we might. He hasn't texted me or anything. But we do have phone lines, and we obviously have an opportunity for anybody to jump in that wants to. 315-872-2378. You can see there. 2378, by the way, is best in the old school phone thing. Like nobody does that anymore, but that's BEST, hence the phone number. So we got that going for us, which is pretty nice on a Thursday. And there's some American soccer stuff. There's some American soccer stuff to talk about. And I thought, hey, why not hang out? Why not do this together? We do need to hear, this is absolutely true. We need to hear Jared's reaction to LA winning MLS Cup. Dang it. I think he's happy. Is he happy? Do you guys think maybe Jared's happy about the Galaxy winning, number 6? Number 6. Pep Guardiola perfected this hand signal, but I'm going to try. 6 for the LA Galaxy. Getting back on top of the mountain. I mean, we don't really need Jared. We don't need to give Jared any more ammunition to talk about his team and how great they are. But he was very happy. I know he was very happy. He was also thrilled that I got a chance to talk to Jeff. That's not his name. His name is Josh Gessman, the Corner of the Galaxy. Didn't do that here. Did that on the Morning Kick-Around show, which people may know I'm doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So tomorrow, new Morning Kick-Around. But here on a Thursday night, in the best soccer show time slot, I thought we opened the phone lines. Obviously, the comments are going. Jump in wherever you want. If you're not already subscribed to the show, subscribe to the show. Subscribe to the channel. Please do that. Also, subscribe to Morning Kick Around while you're at it. That would be nice. And since I'm just going to do all my plugs, I feel like a comedian on a podcast. I don't have dates, but I have the best soccer show. Please subscribe. Like and subscribe. I got to say like and subscribe. That's usually what we do here on YouTube, right? Like and subscribe. And also, if you're listening via podcast, give us a rating and a review. On YouTube, it's like and subscribe. On the podcast feed, it's rating and review. Or tell a friend. That's actually probably more effective. Like, tell somebody you know to check out the best soccer show or check out Morning Kick Around. Like and subscribe that as well on YouTube. Morning Kick Around. Kick Around is one word. Morning Kick Around. One word, Kick Around. Go find that. And then Sirius XMFC every day, Monday through Friday, in the afternoon. It's usually 4 o'clock, but sometimes it's 5 because there's a game. Like today, when I had a blast watching Tottenham and United do whatever the hell that was. Wait, can we talk about that for a second? Can we talk about, I know this is an American soccer show. The best soccer show is through and through an American soccer show. I'm proudly American, and I proudly love American soccer, and I make no bones about that. And some of you will know that doing more European soccer has not always been my favorite thing. I enjoy watching soccer, period. But, of course, I want to be telling American soccer stories. I want to be talking about American soccer. Hence, the best soccer show still going, still being a place where I jump on the air live by myself on a Thursday when I could be watching my NFL team play right now. This is the sacrifice that I'm making for you people because I'm a soccer guy and I want to be here with you, even though my football team is playing an important game of the other kind of football. But what I was going to say about Tottenham and United, and actually, can I get anybody in the chat, anybody watching right now, if you watched Tottenham United, give me like a one-word review on Tottenham and Manchester United today in the League Cup if you had a chance to catch it, and watch the highlights or anything, okay? Because it was a wild game of soccer. There were 2 goals created by Tottenham's goalkeeper Forster through bad turnovers at the back. Right? You also had an Olympico scored by Son that never should have been an Olympico. This is a good word from Nate. All right, we'll throw this word in there. Embarrassing. Embarrassing for all involved. Like when you have a game like that, you don't go, wow, good for Spurs. They outlasted United. Like I saw some Spurs fans on Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky. I don't think I have my name is Davis Jason. If you want to look for me on Blue Sky, if you happen to be on Blue Sky, go find me there. I'm actually going to share some stuff from Blue Sky when we get deeper into the show. But I saw some Tottenham Hotspur fans on Blue Sky saying, why is everybody talking about how bad Spurs were in the second half and nearly giving the game away instead of talking about United? And that was a ridiculous situation that United couldn't beat a Spurs team that was missing both Christian Romero and Mickey Van de Ven and et cetera, et cetera. Like there we go. I like this, Nate. In Spanish, we say vergüenza ajena. Yeah. Everybody gets embarrassed. Everybody's shamed. Right? Okay. Now, what I was going to say about the Spurs fans were lamenting the fact that people were throwing buckets of shame on them, just like they were throwing at United for losing the game in the first place. And Fraser Forster nearly gave the game away to Manchester United. And again, you look at the other side and the Olympico from Son, which there was a foul, but my point is, I watched that game, right? And no, that was not the absolute best team that Spurs could have put on the field. I already mentioned both their center backs were missing. Maybe Amorim was experimenting, throwing a bunch of weird players into weird positions and trying some stuff. Who's good, who's not, okay? Right? Like that's true. But these are still, last time I checked, still 2 Premier League teams. 2 of the biggest spending teams on the planet. Right? Like we tend to think so much about the top level of the game. The Premier League, a couple of clubs in Spain, a couple of clubs in Italy, a couple of clubs in Germany, 1 club in France, and we're like, that's everybody's like, no, not everybody's like that. Like the vast majority of transfers are not happening at the 50 million euro range. Like the vast majority, 95% of transfers are what, less than 5 million, less than 4 million, less than 3 million? I mean, we're talking about very small. Anyway, my point is that's the 1%. Both Spurs and United are 1%ers when it comes to world football. They have the ability to sign players no MLS team can dream of signing, at least depending on their moment in their career. Maybe when they're 35, they'll consider coming to Major League Soccer. But both those teams can go out and find players and spend crazy amounts of money on players, and then they play that game. And if you watched it, you know what I'm talking about. Right? This idea that, a Major League Soccer will never achieve true popularity among soccer fans because it's not the pinnacle of the sport. Right? And this is mentality rather than reality. Right? And I hear that you'll hear this sometimes from newbies and particularly from sports journalists who are new to soccer or are trying to be more open-minded about soccer than the previous generation of sports journalists who rejected it out of hand. Right? I don't have any names for you. But every now and then Stephen A. Smith says something nice about soccer or mentions soccer or gets all riled up about a soccer topic. Right? And we're like, oh, look, Stephen A. Smith cares about soccer. We're making it. We're doing something. And sometimes in those areas, like you'll get somebody, have you ever heard this from anybody? Sports fan, buddy of yours, friend, whatever, brother, sister, whatever. Somebody you know saying, yeah, I'd like to like MLS. I'd like to like soccer, but it's not the best league, right? We don't have the best league. So why would I care about soccer in America? The best league's in England. So if I was going to be a soccer fan, I'd watch English soccer. I can't watch the second best, the third best, the eighth best, the 10th best league. I can't do that. Well, again, completely missing the forest for the trees when it comes to what soccer is and its difference to the major sports in this country, football, basketball, baseball. Missing that whole thing, but also just not even connecting with the possibility that soccer is one of those sports with this idea of quality of play. Like, I get it. Okay. A player who plays for Manchester United or Tottenham is more than likely going to have better technical skills on average than a Major League Soccer player. I'm not saying that that's not true. That's probably true almost all the time. Right? It's how they get to the Premier League. But man, you're going to tell me that what we saw today, I know it was a League Cup match and not a Premier League match, but those are still two top-level Premier League teams, both of them with ambition, giant stadiums, incredible revenues, the ability to spend money on top-quality players. That was an atrocious game of soccer from a quality perspective. Like, it was just, there were moments, it's not even just Fraser Forrester, right? It's not even just the Sun Olympico that shouldn't have happened. It's not just Lisandro Martinez just botching it from a defensive perspective. It is, there were moments in that game that looked like 5-year-olds trying to kick the ball away from me. Like, bunching. You guys know bunching, how bunching works in youth soccer, right? Kids don't understand positions. They don't know they're supposed to stay in their area of the field. They just go for the ball. There were plenty of moments like that in that game. And I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater and saying the Premier League stinks or those teams are not good. But this is just, again, a conversation about how quality is a slippery topic. The idea of quality is a very slippery topic. And I think it's weird that so many people try to reject American soccer out of hand without fully engaging with it because it's not the best. It's not the best. Okay. Now you tell me it's not the most entertaining sometimes. That was entertaining today. Right? Entertainment does not always follow quality. The best played soccer games can be extremely boring. Extremely boring. And the worst played soccer games can be incredibly entertaining. And obviously vice versa. Vice versa. Just don't think in binary terms, I guess is all I would say. Okay. Phone line's open. Phone number's there. If anybody wants to pick up a phone, I know it's a weird thing in 2024. Nobody does that, I guess. You can leave your comments. Let's see what we've got here in the comments. Ricky Puig came over at 22, says Lefty. That is true. He is an outlier. Good for the LA Galaxy to get Ricky Puig at 22. I mean, I think Ricky is one of those true intrepid types, right? He didn't get the spot at Barcelona he wanted, and rather than going traipsing around Spain or Europe looking for an opportunity, he was like, I'll just go to Los Angeles. I got the hair for it. So good on Ricky Puig coming to Major League Soccer. I will also, okay, so this is the things I want to talk about tonight before I get out of here and go watch other things. Three big topics for me in the last week or so in American soccer. One of them really came down today, and we'll get to that last, in terms of the MLS GAM numbers and some of the trades that are happening. In fact, the Galaxy, defending champions now of Major League Soccer, traded the MVP of the Major League Soccer final, MLS Cup final, to Nashville, and Gaston Brugman, and I believe it's Sean Davis going the other direction, right? And there's a little bit of money changing hands as well. So that's happening. GAM numbers are out. Everybody trying to figure out what those GAM numbers mean and reckoning with the, not reckoning, but recognizing a little bit more in terms of transparency on the part of Major League Soccer, which I think is fascinating. And that's the part that really gets me. And we'll get to that. I want to talk about MLS and TV. Anybody got opinions on MLS and the TV situation? Because, the MLS Cup final was great for those who watched it. Or, I mean, there were moments when it was a fun game. It wasn't always the best game in terms of entertainment value. But it certainly was supposed to be a big stage, an opportunity for the league to sell itself. New York, Los Angeles. Its most storied club up against a team that had never won a trophy, right? A Cinderella story in the Red Bulls and the Galaxy with Ricky Puig, who was not able to play, but that was a story you should be able to sell if you're Major League Soccer. And then afterwards, everything we've been talking about in the aftermath of that final isn't, hey, the Galaxy, they won their 6th. What a great run. That's a great story. Let's push that. Or, hey, Miami got knocked out by Atlanta, and they're going to have to come back in 2025 if they want to win with Messi and Suarez and Alba and Busquets and all those. It's not those things are out there for those of us paying attention, but a lot of the conversation has been about TV numbers or the lack of an audience for the MLS Cup final. If you're on social media, whether it's on Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever, Instagram, I don't know, I'm sure that you have seen somebody point out that the USL Championship final had more viewers than the MLS Cup final, right? We've all seen those numbers, right? And obviously part of the problem with that, the context of that conversation is that we don't know exactly what those Apple numbers are because they don't give them. So I'll get to that. But maybe this is the least of the three, but certainly interesting for me, is the Leagues Cup in 2025. The league dropped the schedule today. I mean, obviously the schedule is a story as well, and some of you are very interested in the MLS Cup MLS schedule rather for 2025 because you travel, you follow your team, maybe you're looking for which games you're going to go to at home, maybe you're season ticket holders. But with the schedule coming out, even before that, we had already gotten word that the Leagues Cup in 2025 was going to look very different. First, Ernst Tanner, Philadelphia Union general manager, president of whatever, said that Philadelphia was not going to play. And everybody's ears perked up and went, what? Philadelphia's not in the Leagues Cup? How is that possible? Isn't the Leagues Cup a competition that involves every MLS team and every Mexican team? So once Ernst said that, he got asked to Chris Albright of Cincinnati, and he said, oh, Ernst spilled the beans. And, okay, well, now we got the ball rolling. What's happening? Mikel Arriola, Liga MX president, ahead of the Apertura final second leg, Club America winners, third straight tournament for Club America, by the way. Incredible run for them. Shout out to Alex Zendejas. Mikel Arriola said, we're not doing the weekend Leagues Cup. We're not taking a break in the summer. We will play Liga MX games on the weekend, and we will play Leagues Cup games midweek. Now, I don't have the attendance numbers in front of me for Leagues Cup in 2024. I think there were some games that did okay, other games that obviously did not. But moving things midweek, mainly, generally speaking, in Major League Soccer, in American soccer, is not a great way to get fans in the building. Right? When you have midweek games, it's a harder sell. Midweek games tend to be a lot less attended. So what does this mean about the Leagues Cup? And then the schedule, right? And then again, he mentioned midweek, and we now know there is no summer pause. The Major League Soccer is no longer doing a stop. Now, the league is taking a break, and if you've seen the schedule today, you know the league is taking a break, a couple of weeks, for Club World Cup and Gold Cup. And it's the same time frame. Right? Those two things are happening at the same time. Obviously, we have a couple of MLS teams in the Club World Cup, and I guess with just 2 weeks and not the entirety of the Club World Cup, Major League Soccer is not thinking their teams are going to go very deep in that. Obviously, that will create some scheduling wrinkles if it does end up that there are MLS teams who go deep in the Club World Cup, which who knows what to make of that damn thing, right? I know Johnny Infantino was extremely excited about it. It made his $1 billion deal with DAZN. And I do believe there's a possibility of some sub-licensing happening in America with the Club World Cup. We'll see about that. I don't want to drop too many breadcrumbs. I don't have all the information. But if there is, there may be somebody else who will pick up Club World Cup broadcasts on American television in 2025, which, again, I don't even know how to feel about that thing. It's such a weird, contrived, forced down our throats tournament. Like, we've already talked about the fact that Inter Miami was gifted a spot based on what? The Shield? Is that what it was? The Shield. Or are they calling them the host team now? Like, the Club World Cup spot for MLS teams, you have to win the Continental Championship. Obviously, Seattle gets in through that mechanism, but this is such a weird thing. Nobody really wants it, but everybody feels compelled to be involved. CONCACAF teams, Monterrey, Seattle, León, Pachuca, and then, of course, we mentioned Inter Miami gets the host spot. So 2 MLS teams. I guess that's a thing about, again, with the way the league schedule looks for 2025, it doesn't seem they expect those teams to go very far. We get a Gold Cup break for the group stage. That happens every time there's a Gold Cup for the most part. But the schedule dropping clearly indicates that the Leagues Cup is taking a back seat. It does say League Cup July 29th to August 31st, but there's no pause. There's no break the way they did the last 2 years. And after Mikel Arriola's comments, and thinking about the fact that this is going to be smaller, and there's rumors out that they're going to do the Swiss format, the Swiss League format, whatever that's called, which is what the Champions League is essentially doing now with you play 8 teams from different pots. Everybody's in one table. Swiss format it's a lot of soccer. We're getting an extra game, or extra 2 games rather, out of the group phase, the league phase, and the Champions League. It just feels like a lot. Like, I'm not against it as a format for determining who moves on, but in terms of how much soccer it is, it's a lot to deal with. And I get paid to watch the Champions League and talk about it, and I'm thrilled that I get to do that. But sometimes, man, by the way, did you guys know? I know it's an American soccer show, but did you know that for the Champions League final league phase day, which I believe is January 29th, so there's 2 match days left in the Champions League phase, and they come in January. And, obviously in the past we never had January group stage, league phase, first phase match days because we were always done with the group stage by then, and the knockout rounds happen when you turn the calendar over. Well, now because you have 2 extra games, you play 8 instead of 6, there are 2 more match days left, and they happen back-to-back weeks in January. All right, so January 22nd, 23rd, I think, and January 29th. January 29th, there will be 18 simultaneous kickoffs in the Champions League. 18 simultaneous kickoffs on that day in the UEFA Champions League. And again, this is not related to American soccer directly, except we will have Americans involved. It's to point out that everybody, and Johnny is involved in the Club World Cup, but not the Champions League, but the Club World Cup is FIFA's attempt to grab something that the Champions League has that UEFA controls. And man, just remember that now we have the revised Super League under the Unify League name. Who saw that? Which is what, 90-something clubs in 55 countries is their plan? That's a streaming play. Make no mistake that the Unify League is a streaming play. It's not about soccer. They're selling it to you as some sort of better version, finally taking the monopoly away from UEFA. But that's not what it is. It's a streaming play. They have a platform, and they want to push all that soccer to a platform to grow their platform. But my point is that they keep throwing soccer at us, right? Now, Major League Soccer's schedule shows no break for the Leagues Cup. Is the Leagues Cup dying? Is it on life support right now? Is this development that not everybody from Major League Soccer will play in it, that it'll be played midweek rather than weekends, and that there is no pause by either league to play it, is it an indication that the Leagues Cup is on life support? And I think it would be easy for me to throw stones and to get up in arms and say, what the hell were you thinking in the first place? Like, what were you doing in the first place with this? Like, what are we talking about here? You're going to stop your domestic league to play a contrived tournament with another league? You're going to put all the teams together? Oh, and by the way, in terms of the competitive element, the actual integrity of the competition, you're going to play every game in American cities, in MLS venues, no games at all in Mexican cities. And this is clearly what Arriola's been dealing with. Right? And who didn't see this coming? Like, duh, Mikel. Everybody saw this coming. The fans in Mexico, the clubs in Mexico finally went, wait, what is this? What are we doing here? We're stopping our league, we're stopping football in our country, and we're taking all of our games somewhere else. And it smacks of what the Mexican national team's been doing for a very long time, which is hitting the cash register of American cities and American markets. And Mexican soccer fans always showed up for the Mexican national team, for the most part. And the FMF could go cha-ching, 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 and they never played in Mexico. I mean, the fact that the United States lost to Mexico in Mexico, what was that, last month? That was, or whatever that was such a strange thing. Not because the U.S. lost to Mexico, but because it happened in Mexico. Mexican national team games happened in America when they were home games, friendlies, of course, because that's how they could make the most money, right? So the craven ownership in Mexican football went, okay, well, we'll do this thing with MLS, and we'll go get some change out of American markets. We'll get some cash. And, of course, back home, they were like, no, this stinks. This is a bad idea. We don't like this. We don't like you taking our teams away from us. And that seems to be what Mikel Arriola is dealing with now. Now, Mexico also has, I think, what is an interesting potential development that may be related to the attitude about all of this, in the fact that there might be new investment coming in. Now, I last I checked, they had not approved this new investment, but I do believe it involves NFL interest. The NFL investing in Mexican football. Of course, the NFL has been pushing into Mexico for a while now, playing games in Mexico City and those things. So that is kind of like, all of this sports money mixed together. How does NFL investing in Liga MX help the NFL? I don't know, but obviously Major League Soccer has a lot of connections to the NFL as well. So it's all kind of in the same pot. So it looks like the Leagues Cup is probably going to die. And I'm not going to be sad to see it go, but I am going to be sad that we tried to do another thing. Somebody decided something was a good idea. We started it and we dropped it shortly thereafter. And maybe it'll take some bastardized form. And remember that the showcase, the Leagues Cup showcase, because MLS and Liga MX were ready to fire this thing out of a cannon. The pandemic got in the way and they had to adjust. And they were like, okay, well, what do we do now? Well, let's do a showcase. A couple of teams, a couple of Mexican teams, a couple of MLS teams, and they'll play each other. And we'll just do kind of a friendly tournament. And they were like, well, that's just a warm-up for the big explosion of soccer coming at you this summer, when Liga MX and Major League Soccer meet up in the Leagues Cup. And we had the Messi show in year one, and it sold, and it was also the first year of Apple, and it was like, oh, this is a great idea. And year two, I don't know that anybody really cared. I'm not sure it was. I mean, we celebrated Columbus making finals because that's what they did. But other than that, it was like, is this worth it? Do we like it? And apparently nobody does. So here it goes. And I just, as somebody who's been talking about American soccer for a long time, and as somebody who wants to see the game continue to grow in this country, I'm so tired. I'm so sick. And throw the NISA news of today onto this pile. Throw any club disappearing, dropping off the face of the earth, dying, shutting down, any league struggling. Throw in whatever you want. Throw in the lawsuit that's about to go to trial between NASL and U.S. Soccer next month. All of it are tripwires that slow us down as we try to grow. Some of it is almost impossible to stop. And I mean things like U.S. Soccer getting sued because they put standards in place that people don't like, and it's labeled as anti-competitive, and a judge says, yep, that's a case that you can take to court. Because if U.S. Soccer can't set standards, nobody can. And if nobody can set standards, we get NISA or things like it or worse. And so it's a catch-22. We don't want anybody to be able to control and dictate American soccer, but American soccer is not in a place where everybody works all together. Most of the time, we're all fighting each other. Here we go. And then we start a tournament, and it goes away. All right, number 2. And this is obviously tied up in all of this, too, because the Leagues Cup was part of the pitch to Apple when Major League Soccer made the jump to Apple TV and MLS Season Pass. And all the talk has been how bad the deal is for MLS right now. Now, of course, the Fox numbers, the over-the-air numbers, because the game was simulcast on Fox and on Apple TV, those numbers get pulled into the conversation. And they weren't good. What are they, 500,000 people? Not even that? Something like that. Now, let's go back in time to when MLS negotiated this deal with Apple. I don't think MLS was in a great bargaining position at the time, right? The leagues, and you can say, well, it's because of this or because of that or because of the other thing. It's hard to know why MLS was not able to break through with television viewers, right? In a crowded sports landscape in America, fighting as it does, the calendar doesn't help, but can you switch the calendar? I know that's a question we've been asking. Like when you have all those things kind of bouncing around with trying to get people to watch your product, and MLS, because it's soccer in particular, and because these clubs don't go back generations and generations and generations, and because the sport is still in an incubation phase, you've got a local league. You got a league that is relevant in certain local places to certain local fans, but does not have national reach. Right? There's not people tuning in to watch whatever matchup of MLS that's happening on television because they only care about their local team. The NFL has obviously broken out of that, and it's been the biggest reason that they are the biggest sport in this country. People will watch whatever NFL game is on because it's on Thursday, it's on Monday. Major League Soccer wasn't getting numbers. They weren't able to get traction. They looked at their revenue stream from broadcasting and went, this isn't great. This is going to push us forward. We need more money to come in if we're going to raise the cap, right? If we're going to, and you could talk about chicken and egg and whether you need to raise the cap first to get to a place of a better quality product, a more interesting product, bigger names, then you can sell your product on television, or if you need the big television contract first to justify the spending on the players. Those are tough business decisions. But Major League Soccer decided that they were going to get out in front of something they saw coming, which was the decline of linear television channels as sports outlets. And remember, this is right around the time that the regional sports networks were all shutting down or going bankrupt or forcing basketball games onto local over-the-air channels because they weren't available anymore. NBA teams were having to negotiate new deals. So Major League Soccer said, okay, we're going to be the first, right? We have nothing to lose here. We're not the NFL. We're not the NBA. We're not even Major League Baseball. Like our position is weak enough, and our outlook is progressive enough, at least in some ways, and our sport is young enough from a demographic point of view that we can make the jump. We can be the first league to take our product purely behind a streaming paywall. And maybe they benefited. I mean, we've got numbers, but not all the numbers. Again, all of this is kind of like speculative because nothing of this is ultimately public, including Apple TV's numbers on how many people were watching the MLS Cup final or anything in MLS this year. But Major League Soccer said, maybe our path is to be a streaming platform league. Kids are moving to streaming. Young people are only watching stuff on streaming. Here's our opportunity to take advantage of that. And, of course, I think the story, the narrative is that Apple was testing the idea of getting into live sports. And here is a lower cost product, Major League Soccer, than something like the NFL or something like baseball or the NBA or whatever else, that they could try it out, right? Apple, which is the largest capitalized company in the world, right? The most valuable company in the world. Is that still the case? I don't know. I haven't checked the market today. But Apple clearly has the ability to make a mistake or try something out or experiment. And if it doesn't work, okay, whatever. So what? We'll move on. So why not? Why not take a shot with Major League Soccer? And I actually think, as much as this is, Monday morning quarterbacking, right? As much as this is like, oh, look at these numbers. They're so bad. And Apple won't share the numbers. And I saw one of the sports business podcasts. What is it? Andrew Marchand. I don't remember the other guy's name, but those guys. Like I think I saw it because my friend Mark Fishkin tweeted something. Skeeted something. He skeeted it. It was over on Blue Sky, so he skeeted it. He skeeted. If Apple's not sharing the numbers, well, then they can't be good. Right? The logic makes sense. If Apple's not sharing the numbers, they can't be good. This is business. If they were good, numbers were good, Apple would share them. Now, a lot of this has been thrown under that blanket of Apple doesn't share. Right? Apple doesn't share their numbers on anything. So why would they share their numbers on this? And maybe that's a thing. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's cover. Who knows? And I guess there's something to that, right? Like, oh, if their numbers were good, they'd be crowing about them. The league would want to crow about them. Maybe. But remember, the league's bottom line is not necessarily dependent on those numbers in the same way it would be if they were on a linear television channel where they were selling advertising, where the linear channel was selling advertising against Major League Soccer. Right? Then Major League Soccer is going to want to say, we had 8 billion people watching our channel, watching our game. And that makes us a ton more money next time we go into contracts because, oh, look at all the viewership we brought you. That's important. Right? But that's not where we are now with streaming. It's a completely different measure of success. And I don't know how to get a handle on it yet. I don't. I know Garber during the State of the League address was saying that they had 1 million people on a given Saturday watching games. Right? They didn't know, it wasn't necessarily like, oh, 1 million people were watching one game or 300,000 were watching one game and 400,000 were watching another. It was 1 million people across the platform, across MLS season pass were watching games on a Saturday. And that was portrayed as success, or at least progress for Major League Soccer. Now, it's a relatively low bar, right? I mean, we don't think of that as a big number. I think because we've been normalized to NFL numbers, things like that. We tend to, 1 million people, that's it. And again, you compare it to something like the USL Championship final between Rhode Island and Colorado Springs on at noon Eastern on a Saturday on CBS, and that got better numbers, right? Again, some of this is, did people fall into that game? But the issue is, of course, that Major League Soccer is in a place where no one can fall into their game, so they can't get a bump from casual people who are clicking around. Oh, what am I going to watch at noon on a Saturday? Oh, there's soccer on. They don't have that opportunity. And maybe that's the reason why the Apple deal is not a good deal. Now, Thomas is saying the Apple deal was one of the best moves the league has ever made, maybe ever. Being on traditional networks wasn't doing anything to help the league gain traction. Right. And again, this is the Monday morning quarterbacking. This is the results-based analysis. After the fact, we're like, wait a second, they're behind a paywall. And the linear television number wasn't good. And people are complaining about not having access to the league. Right. And obviously, though, again, the logic is, well, you're behind the paywall. Nobody knows you're there. Who knows you're there? And I think those are legitimate issues. Like, there are legitimate issues on awareness for Major League Soccer because you are behind the paywall. Because there's this big hedge and nobody can see through it to know you're there. And obviously, Apple is a part of this. And we've already seen some adjustments coming. They're flexing some games around, not flexing. They're moving more games to Friday, more games to Sunday. They're moving games around in terms of time windows because everybody was like 7:30. Every game's happening at the same time. It's too much. I can't watch any other games. Like, that's not enough. I mean, I can't watch multiple games at once. I don't want to. I want to watch my team. I want to watch one game. I don't know enough about the league. You lose contact with the league when you can't watch more than one game. That is a fair statement. So where is the league right now? I will point out that Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner, recently was talking about television ratings. And I know they've been doing the NBA Cup. I don't know what it's called. What is that called? Is that a name? The in-season tournament, whatever they call that. And he was talking about, this is the quote that he said. He said ratings are down a bit in terms of the comparison last year with the NBA Cup semifinals, 19% down. Silver acknowledged that those were a little softer, ratings are down a bit, but pointed to a broader trend, quote, of cable television viewership is down double digits, unquote. Viewership is down for men's college basketball, 21%, women's college basketball, 38%, the NHL, 28%. Right? This is where we are now. Right. Everybody's moving away from linear television. Everybody's moving away from watching sports that way or watching sports at all. Right. Just maybe fewer people are watching sports. I don't know. Or if there are people who are interested, they are focused on their one thing. The biggest change in our habits as sports fans over the last 2 decades is that now you can hone in on your thing and make it everything you watch or focus on that. Right, there was a time when, okay, I'm a football fan, but I'll flip over. There's a basketball game. Okay, I'll leave the basketball game on for a little bit. I was looking for something else, or it's on Tuesday night and I got nothing else going on, and I'm just flipping the channels and there's college basketball. I'll watch that. I can't tell you the last time I watched a college basketball game. I have nothing against college basketball. And if you give me Duke North Carolina, or you give me, obviously the NCAA tournament's kind of a different animal, but you give me an opportunity to watch a big game, I love that energy. I'll watch if it's there, but I'm not looking for, I don't go out and look for it. Like I'm not enough of a fan of college basketball to sit down and look for college basketball. So the only way to get me, a general American sports fan, to watch college basketball is if I'm flipping around for it. Or somebody points it out somewhere and it's in my, I don't even know when games are happening. Are there games happening? College basketball is a thing right now, right? It is a thing. I know some of you care about college basketball. But man, I don't have, like, it's taken a lot for me to care about the Broncos again and force them into my life a little bit because I'm a soccer guy and I'm watching soccer things all the time. And if I'm not watching soccer things, and obviously this is my job, so it makes it a little bit different, I'm streaming stuff. I'm watching all the millions of shows that are available. I'm working my way through Dune Prophecy, or I just re-upped my Apple, mainly for Christmas specials, but now I can watch Shrinking again. Like, and I guess we used to do it kind of like that, but it's not the same with streaming. Anyway, I wonder about this. And I have somebody, not going to tell you who is convinced this is all blowing up. Who's convinced, based on people that this person knows, things he or she is hearing, that this whole thing is blowing up and that there will be a renegotiation or an attempt by Major League Soccer to get out from behind the paywall in a major way come next year. I don't know. Maybe that's true. Maybe that's not. I think MLS made a calculation that made sense at the time. Whether it pays off is a different question. Very different question. And yes, Thomas, this is true too. It's hard to sit through football and basketball because the commercials overrun the game. Soccer has broken beyond traditional American sports. Yes. Yes. How many of us are exactly in that boat? Like, how many of us are like, another commercial? I can't with this. There's a commercial? What am I supposed to do with myself? With a soccer game, like, I know I'm locked in. I got 45 to 50 minutes probably. I get a bit of a break. In fact, I resent halftime. I resent halftime in a soccer match. It annoys the crap out of me that there's halftime. I mean, I know it has to happen. I know it's always happened. But sometimes I'm watching the game and we get to halftime, like, damn it, it's halftime? There's no soccer for the next 15 minutes? What the heck? Like, that's not what I want. Give me some soccer. and then we kick off second half, and then we go. And then we go again. All right, last but not least, the GAM numbers. Like, man, this blew up in my little corner of blue sky today. All the soccer people that I follow, obviously, the journalists in particular, but even the non-journalists, were kind of going nuts over this. Because it does represent a major step forward in terms of transparency from Major League Soccer. And if you're old enough, right, I don't want to just do this, I'm an old guy thing, things were different in my day, right, because it's still my day. This is still my day. Anyway, if you're old enough, you'll remember a time when we got nothing. Like Major League Soccer gave us nothing in terms of information about salaries, about any of this stuff. Obviously, allocation money didn't even exist for a long time. But the league gave us nothing, no information. And it took the Players Union, the Players Association, publishing numbers for us to have any sense at all of what people were making. And we didn't know until the Players Association was like, we think a lot of our players are underpaid. So here's a bunch of information about how much they're making. Now, those numbers were soft, meaning they weren't firm numbers on what players were making. They were generalized, kind of wishy-washy numbers. Sometimes players made more through other elements of their contract. Sometimes they made less because their contract or their number through the PA represented an amortized number because they were bought, which, by the way, didn't used to be a thing either. Major League Soccer didn't buy players. Players had to move on a free. That's obviously changed. I think a lot of us in those days were unsure if Major League Soccer would ever get to this place, and it includes things like free agency. Like, I remember Jimmy Conrad being part of the team with the Players Association that negotiated the first form of free agency in Major League Soccer. I think it's the reentry draft, right? Is what that's called now. There is actual free agency in Major League Soccer that didn't exist. They did the reentry draft, and there were very strict rules, right, on whether you could qualify for the reentry draft and potentially change your team because of single entity. Now, single entity is a double-edged sword. Single entity saved the league's hide a couple times. Like, single entity allowed the league to keep going when the money wasn't flowing and there were serious questions about its ability to operate. All right? And, of course, single entity was that end run around things like free agency. And if you know a little bit about your American sports history, and obviously soccer as well, because the Bosman rule is related directly to this thing, which is when your contract is up as a player, are you able to sign wherever you want? Or does the team that you were playing for still have your rights and you can't sign anywhere but with them, or they negotiate a move for you somewhere else? All right, and we have Curt Flood to thank for it here in American sports, and you have Bosman to thank for it in soccer internationally. And those things opened up the ability to sign somewhere else when your contract was ended. But Major League Soccer said, no, we're not having that. So we're going to make the league one business, and all of the teams are just outposts of our business. Franchises, right? Franchises. Literally franchises. Even more distinctly franchises than the way that we call NFL teams or baseball teams franchises. Because in the eyes of the law, and they went to court, Fraser versus MLS, in the eyes of the law, it was one company. And if a player finishes his contract with the New England Revolution and wants to play for the Chicago Fire, that's the same company. And the company at the top gets to decide where the player plays. Because they're the ones in charge. They're the ones of your contract is up. You have to play for New England again. You can't move wherever you want. Players like, no, I want to go play for Chicago and get more money from them. It's like, no, we decide that. We're assigning you. Right? This is what allocation was in the beginning. When Lawless and Winalda and Harks and Ramos and all those players came back from Europe in the beginning to play. They were allocated. Now, some of them pushed for where they wanted to play, but the simple notion is Major League Soccer wanted to control costs by making sure players couldn't negotiate with other clubs for better deals, jacking up those labor costs for them. Hey, it's an artificial depressant of your labor costs. And we are now at a place where even though the league is still single entity, and even though in the eyes of the law, all of the clubs are just parts of one company, Major League Soccer, they're not independent companies, they're not independently operated units that will compete against one another. I believe that the NFL's dealt with this too, right? In terms of like licensing for gear and stuff. There's been a lawsuit about that and that I'm remembering. I can't remember what the fallout from that one was. But obviously here we've got Major League Soccer finally saying in the last, I don't know what, dozen years, 10 years especially, but now with this, we want the fans rather to have access, to have understanding of maybe what these teams are doing in terms of building their rosters. And I'm not going to break this down I'm looking at the GAM numbers. In fact, I was going to share my screen so you could see. I mean, some of you have already seen this today. I'm going to put up the GAM numbers, which were over on the league's website, so you can see them. Again, a lot of you have already seen these today, so this is just redundancy. But these are the GAM numbers. The available GAM for 2025, according to Major League Soccer, soccer.com, for each of the MLS teams. Atlanta United. These have changed, by the way. Like, already these have changed because Inter Miami did the trade for Leo Campana to New England, which was $2 million in GAM this year and $500,000 in GAM next year. So Atlanta United has $6.53 million of GAM to use to build their roster for 2025, and they just signed Chris Henderson to work with Garth Lagerwey, and we know those guys can do magic together. Like that's going to be fascinating. If you're an Atlanta United fan, congratulations. Congratulations. And I mean it. Like, I'm toasting you. Congratulations, because I guarantee you your team will be significantly better in 2025 than it was this year, because not only do you have $6.5 million in GAM to use to help build your roster. You've got one of the smartest guys in the league working with another one of the smartest guys in the league to build that roster. So Austin 3.1, Chicago 2.9, FC Cincinnati looking pretty good at 4.2, Columbus, Charlotte, the Rapids. I mean, all the way down. There are some, I guess, important elements to know when it comes to this in terms of where the money comes from. Every team is given $2.93 million for 2025. That's just, it's like extra salary cap room, obviously, right? Like there's a cap, and then this is the flexibility that you have to go and bring in other players. You also get bonus if you miss the playoffs. So that's like, hey, you weren't good. Here's some money to get better. You also get money for qualifying for the CONCACAF Champions Cup. And that's not, hey, you weren't good, here to get better, because obviously you're pretty good. You're going to need more because you need more depth to compete on that level. I mean, some of this stuff is mixed messaging, but there it is. You can also convert up to $3 million per season from transfer revenue into GAM, which I think Miami is benefiting. Look here, Miami's 3.3. Diego Gomez and that sale is going to help them convert some money. And then obviously, again, the Leo Campana deal, which they just did. What are they cooking in Miami? I mean, I mentioned that Chris Henderson left Miami to go to Atlanta, and that's going to be great for Atlanta United. But what are they cooking in Miami that they need all this GAM? And just throwing GAM on top of GAM, it's just like they have DPs. That they already have, obviously, Lionel Messi is a DP on their books. Sergio Busquets is a DP on their books. So they got two DPs. And I'll point out that this is, just because we know the GAM doesn't mean that we know exactly how rosters look in terms of budget charges and things like that. And this is getting like the nerdy part of it. But I'll say, like, as someone who's not necessarily inclined to this, like as someone who's not necessarily the math guy who wants to go diving into these numbers, like shout out to Jeremiah O'Shan, Sounder at heart, who's like really on top of this. Like I saw him tweeting or skeeting that he was like $700,000 off on his estimation of what Miami had when he looked at these numbers. Because he could check his work, because he has been tracking that number, right? He's been tracking how much the Sounders have collected. I'm like, that's pretty great. If you can get, I mean, even with $700,000 is a lot, but even you can get that close, it says a lot. I don't not the guy to go diving into the numbers, but there's definitely an argument here, and I think Paul Tenorio made it today at The Athletic. An argument that this is the kind of thing that engages people, right? Like for me, like, okay, I have zero interest in how NBA trades work, contracts, salary cap rules. I have zero interest. Like I'll watch the NBA during the playoffs, maybe. I have nothing against basketball. It's just not my sport. Like it's not my number one sport. But I was one of those guys reading Bill Simmons back in the day, and then he would do the thing with the NBA trade machine, I guess, that ESPN had on their website, because it would allow you to like make the contracts match, because obviously you can't trade for a player who makes a ton more money than the guy you're sending, because you can't, that's salary cap elements to it. Like you got to make this balance out. We're going to send 4 guys to Milwaukee to get 1 guy back because that 1 guy makes as much as the 4 guys. That kind of stuff. That's not stuff that ever really interested me all that much. It's probably why I sucked at fantasy football, because I don't love that stuff. But I think there's a lot of people that will care, and this will be fun for them. And they want to know. They want to be this deep in it. They want to know what the numbers look like, because it helps them to understand why their team looks the way it does. And, oh, look, we've got this much room, or we've got this much allocation money. We can go sign a fullback to make us better. So, again, Paul Tenorio breaking this down at The Athletic was interesting today, kind of talking about that part and how we don't have always super accurate information, but this gets us a little closer. So there's the GAM numbers. That's a big step forward. I think in the big picture, for me, that's what's interesting. It's a big step forward in the transparency, even though plenty more is needed. Like we need plenty more on that front before we feel like the league is operating in a way that is truly transparent, engages the fans, and we can say that, the single entity element is not holding them back anymore. There was a lot of thought for a while that you didn't want to publish these numbers because it would give agents ammunition to go into contract negotiations and say, what, you've got $500,000 in GAM. You can buy my player's contract down, give him more money, buy down his contract, you fit him under the cap. Like, what are you doing? And that's obviously not as much of a concern anymore for the league. They move on to other things, and here we are. All right, I wanted to throw up the Blue Sky just for a second, so I'm going to switch this over. This is my Blue Sky page. Davis Jason, if you want to follow me, you can see I got all my categories. This is the one I was talking. This guy before I came on the air today. Should we address this? Like, ladies and gentlemen, can you see Dave Hageman? Can you see Dave Hageman's skeet at me? His reply. It says, "Where would Luigi Mangione slot into the U.S. men's national team lineup? He strikes me as a Gattuso type 6." Is that something I should talk about? Like, is that okay? Where is the line on good taste when it comes to talking about Luigi Mangione? And like, I don't know, man. Like, okay, so he's flat out a murderer, right? Like, that's pretty clear. Flat out a murderer. Went to New York, killed the CEO of a healthcare company. Like, I got my opinions on healthcare and how broken it is and whether people like the CEO are responsible for it. I don't want to see people die. Like, I'm just not somebody who condones murder. That's just me. Like, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I'm pretty much a guy who doesn't condone murder. I do think messages need to be sent. I'm also very aware of history, and sometimes it takes drastic action to get a response, but man, that seems bad. Like, shooting people seems bad. And I know there's this stupid debate about the lionizing of Luigi Mangione in some quarters, and the left getting criticized for that, and then the right is turning the CEO into some sort of hero, and now the mayor of New York or the governor of New York is offering some sort of hotline for CEOs who are afraid that they're going to be attacked. They don't... Enough already with that, okay? Class warfare and all of those things. But Luigi Mangioni's got a soccer player's name. I mean, let's not pretend he doesn't have a soccer player's name. Now, my first instinct is to think Luigi Mangione may have an opportunity to play for Italy. Like, if we're going to talk about him and his position in the U.S. men's national team, well, we got to worry if he's a dual national. Like that, and I'm not a big fan of dual national panic. I think we overrate players because they're dual national sometimes. Now, there are other players who are clearly very good, and we definitely want to get them locked down to play for the U.S. men's national team. We don't want to lose them. But I don't like this idea of sort of a predatory cap. You know, like the idea that you go cap a guy just because you want to lock him down in case he's good, and that prevents him from maybe playing for somebody else. Now, if Mangione had the opportunity to play for Italy, you know, that's a tough one. And this is what I'm thinking. Thank you, Lefty. He's going to pull Giuseppe Rossi on us. Like, and apparently by the way, he did play soccer in high school, right? He's a Maryland kid, and he played. I think he played soccer in high school. I don't remember what school he went to in Baltimore. I'm not a Baltimore expert. But man, is he the Giuseppe Rossi of killers? I don't know if Giuseppe Rossi wants to be connected to that part of it. I don't think so. Oh man. Luigi Mangione, man, I guess I could see him as a, I don't know, I think he's too pretty to be a 6. Right? Like, that's the thing. Everybody talking about his looks, because we're a very visual society. Does he look a little bit too pretty to be a 6? I'm thinking like kind of a modern 4-3-3 kind of wide forward winger. Like that, he kind of feels like that to me. Like beating defenders 1v1, getting to the end line, cutbacks, popping up for a goal, cutting inside. Like, I'm hoping he's 2-footed. Like, we don't know. Is Mangione a lefty? Is he a righty? Does he need to play on the left side to cut in on the right foot? Is it better if he plays on the left side to get those crosses in? Do we maybe want him inverted? That's the question. Do we want him inverted? Can he play in the hole? Can he play underneath the striker? Or does he need to be wide? Is he on the left? Sorry. Is he in the middle? Is he? We don't know these things. By the way, we don't even know these things. I can't determine his position. All right. This is Jared saying he doesn't approve. He doesn't approve this? You're not on the show, brother. If you were here, it'd be a different question. For the podcast listeners, Jared popped up in the chat and says he doesn't approve this. All right, well, then I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to call this done. Thank you for listening, watching this special episode of the Best Soccer Show. Jared's out there. He's coming back. I promise you he will. We'll be reunited. It will feel so good. That'll happen probably in 2025 because I think this is probably going to be my final show, our final show of the calendar year 2024. Oh my God, Nicholas Soup and Sausage is in the building as well. Like I don't even know what's happening anymore.
I think I'm starting to like Cincinnati.
Oh man, next Thursday, Jared. Next Thursday is the day after Christmas, and I know you're a heathen who doesn't believe, but I think you celebrate. And I will be in Puerto Rico, so that'll be tough. And I don't know if I can pull that off. That's what Jared is saying in the chat. Next Thursday. All right. Well, if we can work that out, we will. If not, it might be 2025 before I see you guys again, before I talk to you again. I want to thank everybody who supported the Best Soccer Show, not just this year, but like all the time. I can't remember how long we've been doing it this stint, but I think in total, this is 11 years. 11 plus years that the Best Soccer Show has existed. It does mean a lot for everybody that's supported the show, especially all the besties over on the Patreon. If you want to join up on the Patreon, it's supporting the show. We get you some bonus content when we can. There's an incredible community of besties over on the Slack. I think they're talking about stuff with, like, I'm on the air doing this Best Soccer Show. And 13 years? Is that right? 2011? It's 2011, isn't it? 13 years, says Jared. I think you're right. I did bad math. Over on the Bestie Slack, there are people talking about video games and other sports and all other kinds of things, including my man Justin. Shout out to Justin Friedberg. President, Mr. President, President of the Sons of Ben. Do I have that right, Justin? Did you win an election? Actually fairly win an election to become a president? And you got the right people on your side. Thank you very much for showing up, and for everybody else as well. All right, I'm just talking to talk now. I appreciate all of you. Thank you very much for listening to the Best Soccer Show. And again, maybe it's next week, maybe it's 2025, but we'll see you at some point.
The Sausage King of Chicago.
Can I get a manager? Can I please get a manager?
Go to DEFCON 2.
Duh and or hello.
So viel respect for the Gegner. So viel respect for the Gegner.
Damn, dog, that's in a post.
Oh, it's incredible! The horror show.
It was there
Oh, here we go, saucing them up. Hit him, wet.
Michael freaking Arasco Fiscal.
Jay Rodius.